And we're back.
We are back.
I'm talking to Kelly and Courtney Schotten. We're talking, if you're just joining us, about something called dysautonomia. After sustaining a hard hit in a soccer game, Courtney started passing out at school. She later started having tremors, later started having seizures that weren't epileptic seizures, but they're seizure-like. And then we've come to the point in our conversation where they are now at St. Louis. Her heart was fine. The cardiologist said, we don't want her because she's not a cardiac patient. The neurologist said, neurologically she's fine. We don't want her. Let's put her over here in psych. Maybe we need to put her as a psychiatric patient.
Which they did not because we refused.
Kelly said, it's not happening. We know she's not making this up. We've seen this progress. We've seen things go on. As the mom, I'm with you, girl. I would have been blazing guns, slashing and trashing if they would have said, oh, psych. So Kelly has to remove herself. Literally.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and Dad Craig is going to be the calm and confident one at this point in time. So he starts talking to him, and then they subject Courtney to people talking to her one-on-one, and right before the break, we're talking about what types of things they were asking her. And this is what scares me because, gosh, if they want to, they could make it probably sound crazy, but they were asking you questions like what, Courtney? Do you eat glass? Do you
swallow razor blades?
Did you laugh, or were you scared, or were you serious?
No, I was laughing. I couldn't imagine anyone that would ever do that.
Were you answering like, no?
I was like, I've never heard of that ever in my life.
And then,
I don't know
what were
why
they saying?
anyone would do that.
And I believe I recall you asked them, how would you even go about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, for real.
Right.
I mean, that's bizarre. And then were they asking you anything normal? Like, what do you eat for breakfast? Or do you love your family?
No. They asked me about my home life, but then I kind of laughed about that. But, I mean, I have a great home life, so.
You're like, I have brothers and sisters, and we kind of, like,
and
have
we fight
fun.
And
and we beat each other up, and then we go to school.
And, they also, they sent the psychiatrist in to talk to us ourselves.
Yeah, what did they ask you guys?
The same basic, have you seen any difference? Is there any change? And they ask her, a lot of the questions they ask us not about the razor blades, because we didn't find out about that till later.
I bet that
and I
sent you back to the car, didn't it, girl?
Flipping out then, too. But that's okay. She handled it very well. But, they ask her, and then we start going through, and we're like, well, let's see. She is a starting freshman playing varsity soccer. She starts. She's a cheerleader. She was on the homecoming court.
Grades decent.
Her grades are fine. She ran cross country.
Normal teen.
She has a boyfriend. She has a lot of friends. There was no change in friends. They ask us all the
So it wasn't like
questions.
she was cutting herself and becoming reclusive, listening to crazy music and dyeing her hair black.
Nothing had changed. Her life was just as normal.
No major trauma. You guys were fine.
And as a mom, I was a little concerned. Oh my gosh, did I miss something? Has something happened and I don't, and then, we quiz her. Because people who have stress seizures or pseudo seizures are typically under huge amounts of stress. They've been sexually or physically abused. They are suffering from, a terminal illness, or they have huge loss in their life, like they've lost both parents, or not a normal, typical 14-year-old teenager that really kind of has the world right there in her hands.
Yeah.
So we were sort of...
done with St. Louis at that point.
Pretty much done. So they sent us home after we were there for a day, the second time, and she progressively got worse.
Oh, really?
And
what was a daily... What was a day in the life of progressively worse like?
Progressively worse was going from, to school a couple of days a week to school a half a day here and there, to not making it out of the driveway. And we finally decided...
So at that point, was it anxiety because you were afraid these things were going to happen?
She was just that sick.
Yeah.
At that point. I'm certain she was nervous. There were many times she was nervous, and that does make it worse.
We talked about her hair. You said everything changed about her.
Her skin, her hair, her fingernails.
Like you said, my hair used to be long and pretty, and then all of a sudden it was like dry and...
It was dry and breaking off.
I had to cut it off to my shoulders.
And what about your skin?
I had
totally changed.
Dry, so many more breakouts.
And not just normal teenager stuff.
Like
it was
visibly
different.
Something's going on.
Different. It was different.
So who starts bringing up the word mayo?
Well, we kicked it around a little bit, but Easter weekend, she had 17 spells.
And when we say spell, we're talking anything from a tremor to a...
Grand mal
At this
seizure.
point, they looked like seizures. So we didn't know what we were, they kept telling us they're not seizures. She's doing this to herself. And we were like, oh, okay.
We're kind of holding her, and she's kind of seizing, and it's kind of eyes rolled back in the head and convulsing.
Yeah,
this is scaring us.
And like Craig said, Craig is a paramedic, so, and I always say this, we know enough to be dangerous.
Right.
And of course, as a mother and a father,
So yeah, like what was going on in your house? What were your other 3 children thinking? What were you thinking? Was everybody crying and screaming and panicking? Or what goes on when all of a sudden one of your babies is seizing?
We were fairly calm for the most part, and the kids, more than anything, were just concerned.
Because that's not how you want to see your sister.
No, it's rough. It's really rough.
17 in a weekend.
17 in a weekend. And Craig decided, he said, that's it. I'm taking her.
Yeah.
And it was finals week. So Courtney missed her stuff, but I stayed behind because at the time Courtney was a freshman, so Jordan was a junior. And that meant that Logan was in 5th grade and Shelby was in the 7th grade.
So your other babies had to go to school. They had to take their finals. They had to be there.
My son said, I don't have to go. I'm going with Dad.
So he was going with Dad.
So he went rolling down the road with Dad.
To Mayo with Courtney. Okay.
Uh-huh. And they got up there, and basically Mayo Clinic said, do you have a reference? And he was like, what?
No, we're just here. Can you see us?
We're in the emergency room. And they were like, well, sir, do you have a reference?
Oh, they went to the Mayo emergency room.
In Minnesota.
Oh, wow.
Rochester, Minnesota.
Oh, so he just drove and said, we're going by.
We left at 7 at night and got there at 7 in the morning.
Did you have any episodes on the way?
No, I slept the whole way.
She was worn out.
Yeah, I was.
Because anytime she has a spell, she's exhausted. It just sucks the life out of her.
Wow.
So, Craig said, Courtney looked at him and said, Daddy, I don't feel good. And so he just grabbed her and laid her on the floor, and I guess
Oh, this is at Mayo.
Yes, and I guess she got a little huffy with him, and she was like, sir, what are you doing? And he said, she's getting ready to have one. And he said, Courtney, after she woke up, in the emergency room with the doctors and the nurses.
And everyone else.
Because they jerked her right back there. And they were, oh, yes, grandma.
So at this point in time, they're assuming you're epileptic and you had a grand mal seizure.
Yes. And he said, Courtney, you did good because you got us right in. And that was the second time she had done that.
Dad's like, okay, woo, we got in.
Yes. It's the second time she had done that at a hospital, so it worked out perfectly.
Oh, my gosh.
So they took her back, and they decided to keep her. And they hooked her up to a video monitoring EEG for 48 hours. So for 2 days, she had how many leads?
48, I think.
Yeah, it looked like I saw the picture.
All
it looked
over
like a
her
science
head,
fiction movie.
all over her chest, down her side. And they actually caught 4 episodes on the EEG.
Okay, so this is finally some progress.
Yes.
So while she's physically manifesting these seizure-like spells...
And you could not touch her while she was having one, which Craig said was a struggle.
Oh, to watch her do that and he couldn't help her?
And the longest one she had was 14 minutes. So...
And they wouldn't let him touch her?
Not touch her. Because it would mess up the EEG. So, but the good news was it wasn't a seizure. Because her brain activity was fine. Her heart rate was good. It was a little elevated, but not like it would be.
There's a reason Mama wasn't on that trip.
There's a reason Mama wasn't there. And I had kept a journal.
And you're talking everything she drank, ate, pooped, peed, everything.
Everything. If she pooped, I wrote it down.
Okay.
If she ate, I wrote it down. If she drank, I wrote it down.
So was that very beneficial to them, I'm sure?
Extremely.
Awesome.
So the neurologist on staff was super excited, and she said, kid, I'm more concerned. She said, have you seen how many times you've hit your head?
Mm.
And she started looking. Well, Mayo Clinic actually has groups that they follow of these people that have dysautonomia. And
go ahead.
We'll talk about it after.
Okay.
Break, right?
You guys are learning the cues around here.
We got this.
Okay, so now we've progressed from Marion Hospital to St. Louis Hospital, and now finally they're at Mayo Clinic, and finally about to get some answers after documentation, after testing, after I can't believe how many minutes of what seemed to be a seizure.
Right.
Like I say, there's a reason Mama wasn't there, because you wouldn't have been able to keep your hands off of her.
No.
Okay, please stay with us. We'll be right back.